So now let me invite Professor Marta Pieczara of the Poznan University of Technology. And the topic of the presentation is Architecture Without a City, Genius Loci as the Architect's Work. Good morning, dear colleagues. First of all, let me express my gratitude for the invitation. I am truly honored to be here today to share my thoughts on the spirit of place and whether architecture can create this spirit genius loci without a city. Can we design uniquely valuable architecture with genius loci, even if it is not located in a specific urban context? Let me start with my motivation. Why does genius loci continues to play such an important role in our research? Well, we have already mentioned it today. Well, I've been inspired by what we see in our everyday lives. Yesterday, someone quoted Winston Churchill. First, we shape our buildings, and then buildings shape us. So, as architects, we have an immense social responsibility for our designs. By designing, we create public space, and then future generations will identify themselves with that space. And now let me give you a couple of examples of spaces that people identify with. What are the problems of our public space? Well, chaos. Placelessness is a great word in English that is hardly translatable into Polish. So it's the sense of the lack of space. Then we have also indifference, the lack of authenticity. But on the other hand, if you want to present the opposite qualities, so instead of chaos, we want to speak about harmony. Instead of placelessness, we want to think about uniqueness. And today we also heard a presentation about icons. If you want to talk about identity, authenticity, we continue to quote historic examples. And the opposition between the older places, the icons, and the contemporary spaces that we experience on an everyday basis, in a way, undermines our work because we are talking about things that have already been created. So even today, many beautiful things are being created. These are examples from Szczecin, from other places in Poland. So they do have the genius loci, but it's a borrowed genius loci. These buildings have supplemented the existing urban tissue. They refer to the important places, functions already existing in the towns and cities. So my question is, can we as architects create unique spaces without a city? Just in vacuum, in a void? And if so, what kind of methodology, what kind of design tools could be of help? Let me start with some theoretical background to this problem. No doubt you are well aware of some of these terms. Nevertheless, it is very important to explain the logic behind this problem. First of all, the idea of genius loci in the ancient Rome was interpreted as the protective spirit of a place. Today, this term is so widespread that there is a variety of pronunciations. Americans would say genius loci or genius loci. why I decided to say genius loci, but it's a term that is being used in the discourse in philosophy when speaking about landscape. And one of beautiful definitions that we come across in landscape studies is that genius loci is the value that defines the character of a space, and hence this direct link with identity. Schultz almost identifies the identity of a place with the identity of a person. He writes that the identity of a human assumes the identity of a place. So the identity of a place is the foundation upon which the identity of a person is being constructed. So what is the locus? What is the place? The idea of a place has been also defined multiple times, including by Alto Rossi, who was already quoted, be it yesterday or today. So he defined locus as a place where the human history is taking place. And it has this physical elements, the historical elements, or the events that take place there, and this important element of human memory, which is closely related to the theory by Nora, so that we have places of memory that provoke certain memories, revoke the past. And there are also similar terms used to define a unique place in the definitions by London or Moore. These are the places that we remember, that make part of our lives, that we take care of. These are the unique places. These are the icons of our public space. And Frampton defines them as place forms. So places that also have a form that within this urban, that stands out within this larger urban structure. And if we wanted to quote even more definitions by researchers, they would have certain common aspects. According to all of these definitions, a unique place, this unique locus, has some elements derived from the landscape, artificial elements that are added on, so architecture, and refers to collective memory of the people. And insofar as the first two elements constitute the structure of phenomena that Schultz was talking about, we also have the second aspect, the aspect of human memory, underlined by Rossi. And this directly refers to the history of a city and the city itself. Now, trying to find an answer to the question as to whether we are able to create new unique cities without, unique places, without a city, without these layers and layers of history that ensure this continuity of human memory, I wanted to show you a project that all of you know, but maybe not all of you have started its construction from the very beginning. So our case study is the Salk Institute in La Jolla that was designed by Kahn in the 60s. So why is it the right case study? It is listed among the examples that define a unique space. It is also one of the very few cases, very few examples of architecture that was placed in a completely undeveloped area, far away from inhabited areas. When the project was commissioned, there was nothing there, just empty landscape. So let us actually start at the very beginning. So the architect went to see the plot. It was at the beginning of the 1960s. This is what he found. He took quite a lot of black and white photographs that showed a variety of landscape formations, so mostly cliffs that were quite high, and a plateau that reaches the ocean and ends with the cliffs. And the plot was actually cut through by there were stones that cut through this plot as a result of erosion. So as I have said, the designer, the architect, took a lot of photos and he ordered an exact model of this plot. At this point, he didn't know the exact limits of specific plots. The area was completely uninhabited and there was a road nearby. He only got information that this is where he is supposed to place his design, and the exact borders of the plot will be established later. So, on the basis of this model that he ordered, he made drawings, he also examined his pictures, and he noticed three interesting forms of landscape. So, the cliffs that provide a beautiful viewpoint to the ocean, there is the canyon that is shaped by the water, and the plateau, which is easily accessible from the road. And these three features of the landscape served for him as an immediate source of ideas, of references to the history of architecture. And today we listened to an interesting lecture on archaeology and its role in design. And this is what Kahn relied on. So he sketched bridges he saw in Italy, a variety of facilities he came across during his travel, mostly originated from his journey to Rome and Italy. So this is where his first vision came from, the three independent parts of the institute. It will be composed of a laboratory, a conference center, and the residential part, and all of them were to be associated with the three forms of landscape. So let me go back to the previous slide. And on the left, we can see the lecture hall, which is to the left, and it was supposed to be located above the cliffs and provide users with a beautiful view. Unfortunately, several months later, the architect received a bird's eye view of the land, and it turned out that the building cannot be located where he wanted to because the area was protected due to rare endemic plant species that can be found there. Nevertheless, in his first assumptions, the connection of this part of the plot with the conference center was so strong that he simply decided to move it a little bit inland in order to fit the limits allocated for development, but he still wanted to preserve this connection to the landscape. And the three parts of this project are then called as a reference to the old icons. So the conference center is the new Acropolis, the temple of knowledge. We talked about temples today. So that was supposed to be a temple of knowledge, a place for meeting. And then the Pompeian village. We listened to a lecture about Pompeii today. So it's an intellectual shortcut for the architect. He uses these picturesque images of houses, harmonious houses that are somehow fitted into this landscape. And finally, the labs that perform the key role, the key function, that he called a monastery. He was inspired by the monastery in Assisi because this monastery was listed by the client as the perfect environment for work for scientists. Okay, so as far as architecture designed for the purpose of these three units that are linked to the landscape, we can see that the architect has used a variety of methods. So he uses a very extensive typological analysis of architecture. He relies on the richness of ancient forms, including here the Roman architecture, as you can see in the sketches in the section. So let me emphasize once again the aspect of landscape, the fact that the landscape is so beautiful, then the building is supposed to sort of crown the cliffs. It is transformed into this round form of the buildings that offer these beautiful views. So speaking about this project, we cannot disregard light. It was one of his key assumptions. In his previous works, he came up with the idea of a double wall. What was it about? The building was surrounded by the second wall that was also inspired by the ancient Rome ruins. And once again, archaeology links beautifully to this project. And having calculated precisely the distance between the first and the second wall, we can ensure that the windows are shaded during these key periods of the year when the building could be overheated. Now, today we use computers for this purpose, but to make sure that this was exactly the effect, a model was simply erected on the plot, and then observations were carried out to see if it actually works or not. And then color. Louis Kahn focused on the effect that the light will create on the facades of his buildings and how to modify this effect so that it is harmonious with the landscape. So he was looking for the right hue, he was looking for the right color. And now over to the residential part. It was supposed to be based on the archetype of the Pompeian village. So he was also looking for the right typology, the rhythmical objects that are here squeezed into this canyon. He wanted also to use this picturesque quality of the cliffs, of these small oases of greenery with trees. And then the labs. The laboratories were supposed to be inspired by the monastery in Assisi. Originally, there was a garden in the middle, and the cells, so to speak, of the scientists were to provide a garden view. But then, as a result of cooperation with landscape architects, the garden was replaced with this square. It's a public space with a water body, and it's considered unique worldwide. So people travel there to look at the ocean, and Louis Kahn managed to create this project in a place that was deprived of any kind of urban context. When it comes to the rooms that were inspired by the cells of monks that face the internal court, let me here explain why they are located every second floor. Well, the client said that the worst thing for scientists in this area is the sense that just above you there is another scientist who is one step ahead of you, and the scientists that work on developing vaccines. So, light. Let me once again tell you that this placement of the walls at the angle of 45% is not accidental. It provides shade during the summer season. And once again, referring to this atmosphere of work at the monastery in Assisi, the architect proposed these external places for contemplation, for the exchange of thought between scientists, focusing still on colors and on materials. And today, during one of the presentations, I also saw the analysis of colors, right? This is something that we do also today. And Louis Kahn, 70 years ago, also carried out color analysis, and specifically it was about the color of the cliff. So to obtain this color of concrete, it took a lot of time, a lot of tests, and even he had to send his employee to California in order to ensure the sample of concrete that would be the exact beige color that he wanted. So here we have these structures that are made of landscape and architectural elements. But how did the architect manage to add the element of human's memory? Well, he used archetypes. How did he do it? By examining typology. And here archaeology turned out to be necessary. As you can see, he looked for architectural solutions by examining the typology of famous Roman monuments, such as in here, one of the palaces that was quoted multiple times in his sketches. Finally, the form changed, but what remains is this archetype. So here we have the archetype of a temple. On the one hand, we have a landscape form that is privileged. This is the hill. And on the other hand, we have monumental architecture. On top of that, we have the central typology. In the middle, in the center, we have the idea of this temple of knowledge. Yet another archetype was used to create the residential buildings, and here the architect spoke of the Pompeian village, but he construed it a little bit more broadly during his voyage to Italy. The architect made a lot of drawings in the entire Amalfi region, not only in Pompeii themselves. So the view of this typology of buildings squeezed into cliffs, into rocks, found its permanent way into his memory. So he knew that it's the image that many people will recognize, so it makes part of our collective memory, and it was used in here. And finally, the archetype of a monastery that was used to design the typology of the lab. Here, let me emphasize this strong structure. On the outside, we are dealing nearly with a fortress. There are no windows, but all of the windows give you a courtyard view. We also have a type of an arcade that surrounds this space. It's a clear reference to a monastery, and then finally the objectives of the scientists. So to sum up, how did he manage to create such a space that is now being referred to as unique by Frampton? He gives the example of this project as a place form and encourages people from all over the world to go and see this specific space. So Kahn, in all of the three units, used landscape analysis, identified the prevailing elements of the landscape and linked them to the function of a specific building, and then applied the right typology on the basis of his archaeological research. And that's, he referred to the archetypes that are deeply rooted in our collective awareness. So to sum up, the project procedure applied by Khan, who succeeded to create a unique place without the context. First, landscape analysis, functional analysis, typology, and then by combining the three, he referred to the archetypes rooted in our collective memory, and as a result, he created, apparently out of nowhere, this genius Loci. But in fact, it was the outcome of his work and of the many analyses he carried out. Thank you very much for your attention.